Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. This time, Dark Page. It's TNG episode. Yep, Dark Page. I'll tell you what isn't a dark page. It's our It's All Been Trekked Before Facebook page. Not dark, lots of fun. Maybe occasionally a little bit of dark comedy. A lot of self-deprecating comedy. I enjoy it very much. It makes me laugh. It's a lot of what we do on here, and it's just more of it. And get in there. Get involved with us. Mix it up with us. Tell us what you dig, what you don't dig. Hopefully it's mostly what you dig. Either way, follow us on Facebook. It's All Been Trekked Before, spelled just like it sounds on Facebook. Now let's turn to the Dark Page, TNG, It's All Been Trekked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Same hosts as last week.
This is Steven.
Jimmy Jerome.
And I'm Megan Overholt.
Hey, Megan's back.
Yay.
And Megan, you said you are much more familiar with Next Gen than DS9, right?
Yes. I remember watching this episode. So
Nice.
It was really cool to watch it as a kid and then watch it again as an adult with all my life experiences. It totally changed it for me.
Nice. Yeah, I think when we get to the ranking the episode, you may recognize some of the other episode titles enough to join in that.
Maybe.
Effort. Yeah.
That's the thing is like the title episodes. Did I know them? I was watching them on TV. I was, a kid.
If you just listen to the podcast, we say, was it better or worse than this episode? We say yes or no, whatever, and move on. But if you watch it on the video on Patreon, you'll see that where it's always, what was that episode again? Oh, let's go. Oh, that's what that episode was about. And then we rank it. So,
or I could just answer maybe and just leave it at that.
That's not helpful.
Could be.
So this was the first time I'd seen this episode. We're talking about Dark Page. What were your first impressions of Dark Page?
So I loved the beginning. It starts off with a lot of energy and a lot of really cute, fun performances. It kind of sets everything up before it all just spirals down into sadness. Really love the costumes in this one too. Actually want to wear some of them, but we don't do costumes and it's all been done. So
I mean, you can if you want to. Keith always does.
Keith does, yeah.
I think it started out really like you just thought it was going to be another fluff episode of how fun everybody learns, but it really gets deep.
Well, Lwaxana is usually the fun fluff episode, but her last time we saw her was on DS9, and that was a more serious episode for her. So I think at this point, maybe Majel was like, hey, can I have a little more to do than just annoying ant of the galaxy?
Annoying ants of the galaxy.
Yeah, my first note is Lwaxana! And then, no, it was not. I guess my overall first impression is, and I have this note, usually I'm very much like, can we just get to the reveal? I think I might have done this just last week on TNG. And it's either one of two things. One, we took too long to get the reveal, or two, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth waiting that long. Or both. It wasn't worth waiting that long, and the reveal sucked. In this instance, holy crap. I was like, oh man. Because I was really expecting to be underwhelmed, and then I was overwhelmed, and then I still went back to number one, which was, I wish we'd gotten to this 20 minutes ago, and we could have really examined this, but instead, and I think Majel is fantastic in it, man. Her blubbering is on point. It's so great. Great's the wrong word, but it's so, it was hurting me. And then it's like, Deanna goes into counselor mode, and then obviously we're moving on. Maybe I would have argued if they'd actually done that. I might have argued the other way, like I don't want to go through this. This is depressing. But I maybe not 20 minutes, but maybe a few more minutes. That said, yeah, I think the reveal. I don't know if it redeems the whole episode for me, but maybe little Kirsten Dunst does though. So. It was great seeing her. I think you alluded to this in the chat or our green room chat that there was a great guest star, and I was like, oh man. So so there was that. So yeah, it's a weird episode. And for a while I was like, oh man, they screwed Troy again. They screwed Deanna again. But the end, that payoff's pretty good. But yeah, so I'm somewhere in the middle, I think. But you guys convinced me last week. You guys brought me around last week, so.
I mean, this wasn't my favorite episode. It has some good elements. I agree, Magel's wonderful in it. I think it was quite the twist. But maybe it's because I knew early on what the twist was. Because while I have not seen this episode, I read about every episode. And as soon as I knew that, oh, this is the trauma. Okay, this is going to be Troy's sister. I'm familiar with who Kestra is. I'm familiar with that part of the story. So I was just like, okay, this is kind of hokey how they're doing it and getting to it, but
So for when I was a kid watching it, I didn't really pay attention to the whole loss of a child thing. It was, she's having headaches, and it's because she's, using her powers in a certain way that's hurting her. So when it came to the reveal, I was like, oh no, because of my own experience. It was like, I forgot that this was what this was about. And so when watching it as a kid, it was kind of like, yeah, whatever. And this one, I was like, okay, all right, another dead child trope. Let's see what they do with it. And I got punched in the gut over and over. She was so good. Like, so good that I had to go back and look and see if she'd ever lost a child, because it was so spot on.
Yeah.
But it could also, the writing was fantastic on that as well.
Did you look to see if the writer had lost a child? Hilary Bader?
No, I couldn't keep going with it.
Hilary Bader's dead. She died in 2002. She was only 50 years old when she passed away. I'll do some research here in a minute to see if she had kids or whatever, although she may not be well enough known for that to come up on Google. We'll see. But anyway, she wrote 2 other Next Gen episodes before this. One of them was The Loss, which was a Deanna Troi-centric episode where she lost her abilities.
And
then she also wrote Hero Worship. In terms of those 3, this was at least better than The Lost for sure. Not sure about Hero Worship. Maybe
Hero Worship where the kid wants to be Data?
Yeah. Maybe I'd put it on about par of that. I'm not sure. But yeah. I do think there were some really interesting elements to it. And the reveal itself, that scene was so powerful. I have no complaints about the scene where we actually found out what happened. I think the headache stuff went on a little long, and they really leaned into making the guest star of the week, the Makis, whatever, seem sinister and evil. And I liked the characterization of, he's not sinister and evil, you just don't understand him, he's very alien, it's a different perspective. And so I appreciate that, but I felt like in terms of direction and stuff, they leaned into it a little too heavily.
That's what led me to think the payoff was going to be very underwhelming.
Well, we also had that episode recently where that guy was like controlling Troy's mind and stuff, and it was a rapey episode, and that's where it felt like they were going with him, or at least they were trying to make us think they were going there that way. But yeah, like I said, I knew what the twist was ahead, so I didn't. I see nothing about her children on. She has a Wikipedia page, and she died of breast cancer. At the age of 50. Hilary Bader, but I see nothing about if she had kids or not. At the very beginning, Lwaxana, not Majel. I was teaching this race how to communicate, because they only communicated by thought. They never did a verbal language, which is a really interesting sci-fi concept to explore.
And they seem to suggest that verbal communication is superior to just your thoughts, but is it?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like you can communicate more fully just transmitting thoughts, maybe, but...
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get into more science on later, but it's the whole Kramer thing where, like, in the future, I won't even have to call you. I'll just think it, boom, and you'll be in your head, and you'll be like, yeah, let's get together at the cafe. But with the words or the sound have to go through your head, or... I feel like Star Trek of all shows should be more like, yeah, there's lots of other ways to communicate. I mean, we had light forms. They're never going to get... Well, I shouldn't say they're never. I don't want to demean the lights from that episode, whatever that episode was. But I don't know how verbal they're ever going to get. So, and I don't know. I don't think there's an empirical way to prove the best form of communication. But
and there's this pictures, right? So
right, yeah. They say 1,000 words. So even then, you get the verbal bias. Even within that, unbelievable.
Well, I guess if they were just showing pictures, that'd be less biased. You make up your own biases would influence how you saw the pictures. I didn't get from this that they thought it was inferior. I just got from this that nobody else does that. So we need you to communicate the way we communicate, because it's easier for one race to adapt to our way than all the races to adapt to your way, which is like the United States of America going all over the world saying, just learn English, even though English is way harder than their own.
It's actually... It is very much like them being like, do you speak English? But instead they're doing it inside their heads. Like, yeah. I did like, while we're there, I liked whatever the vocal effect was on their talking. Like it wasn't a big production thing, but it was just like, okay, there's something going on. I
like they had a vocal box kind of.
Yeah. That's what I thought was going on at first. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Picard's reaction when Lwaxana was complaining about them at the beginning and about like I can't even remember how it was exactly phrased, but I know something about not talking, and Picard's like, really?
Yes, that's what I love, the energy in the beginning. Yes, he just he laughed so hard.
I love Picard whenever Lwaxana's around because he's always like trying to escape her, but also has respect for her and has compassion for her, but he just doesn't want to be in her presence too long. And I don't really blame him by the way she comes after him hard.
One more question while I'm asking these questions about communication. Would a universal translator, because when you said the voice box thing, that made me think of the universal translator, would that work with them?
I wouldn't think so, but if Uhura had still been alive, she probably could have figured it out.
That's
we need a Uhura level genius at communications and translation.
Yeah.
At least Uhura, as she's been portrayed in Strange New Worlds, is like super genius on communication and language and linguistics. Yeah. So yeah. Lwaxana calls Worf Mr. Wolf. I feel like she's probably done that before.
I thought I just heard that wrong, but
no, she called him Mr. Wolf. In the Imzadi book, she calls him Mr. Wolf too.
Hilarious. Speaking of fashion, well, you're not speaking of fashion, but I am fashion. I loved Troy's dress. I needed Deanna's Troy's dress when she comes in. And our folks at my favorite Tumblr, it's my favorite Tumblr. I'll say it. Fashion It So, the TNG Tumblr. They really loved her dress. They did say they thought it was spandex. They're like, yeah, that's spandex. Also, I thought it might be one of those, and I feel like this was the time for them. Do you guys remember those clothes that were like heat sensitive?
Yes, I do. Oh, yes.
I was sure. I wasn't sure, but I thought this reminds me of that.
I don't know if that would have been okay for cable, but yeah, it could have been.
Yeah, but she looked great, and I liked Lwaxana's clothes. Although Fashion It So was disappointing in her first outfit, but then the second outfit she wears on the turbo lift and all that, they approved of that. So
the race, the Cairn that we were introduced to in this, I thought they were just the Telosians with hair. Because they had the brains sticking out the sides like the Telosians in the Cage, the original series, original pilot. And those beings only communicate with telepathy, although they had words, not pictures. But I was like, are these just a slightly less advanced spin-off of the Telosian race?
That's a good point. And I thought, and the Fashion So people make the same point, I thought the dads, or our main guy, Mac is actually, that's what they suggested. You call him Mac. I thought his looked pretty good. I thought it looked all right and weird. Our girl, Kirsten Dunst, I thought hers just looked not good. No bueno. It just looked like they put plastic on her head.
They don't put as much heavy stuff on the kids when they come on the show.
Well, they should.
Cairn, of course, is a pile of stones in Scotland used to bury the dead. So the alien name was on point for this episode.
Oh, yeah. Somebody, they mentioned that too. Yeah.
Oh, I like Lwaxana telling, was it Troy, her brain's not sophisticated enough? Or no, Worf, his brain's not sophisticated enough. And then Riker's laughing and she's like, neither is yours.
Yes.
That was good. Lwaxana is, of course, still trying to arrange marriage for Troy, which, for a second, it's like, is the pain she's having just because she wants Troy to get married and she's not married? Because
I actually thought I thought two things. I thought that at first, like she was so. Well, I thought she was dying, and I thought that was, and they actually let her look bad in a couple scenes.
Yeah,
and I thought that was so. The whole thing was like, oh, before I die, please marry somebody. Which, again, the Fashion Is So people are like, really, 24th century? That's still the measure of a woman is: are you married? Did you get a good husband? But
I think for most people it's not, but for Lwaxana Troy it is.
And while I'm on sexist corner, I'll out myself here as a sexist. I also thought it might be a space menopause episode. I really thought that's where we were going with this, and I'm glad we didn't. But we went to a much worse place, actually. But I thought it was just me. Well, when Betazoid women get to this age, they have these hot flashes and yada yada yada, and they get even more emotional than regular women. But I'm glad we didn't go there. But I thought that's where we were going.
Yeah. No, definitely didn't go there.
Her mood swings were more akin to like a bipolar episode. with her anger and the paranoia and then the happiness. And so I thought definitely psychic damage.
We get into some high grade, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we get into some high grade psyche mumbo jumbo to explain all of this. That's for sure. I mean, I know it's betazoid,
Get an anatomy lesson.
Yeah, I'm just like, you guys are saying a bunch of stuff, and I can't dispute it, but you might just be making it all up. Actually, they are. It's a fictional episode.
Sure. Do you think Lwaxana's obsession with Troy getting married and having kids has to do with this tragedy? That her family line's going to come to an end, and
that makes sense.
It's just that she herself enjoyed being married so much. She just wants her daughter to have the same joy.
Oh man, Lwaxana tells Riker to stay away from Troy, which, and then she apologizes later. Yeah, right. She was not a fan of Riker in the beginning, as we know from the novel Inzadi, but I figured by now she wants Deanna with Riker, or would be rooting for them. I'm really disappointed. This is spoiling, I guess, a bit ahead, that we don't get to see her at their wedding, because I wanted her reaction to Riker and Troy's marriage. And I'm really disappointed. They're like, no, we've got the wedding on Earth. Now we're on our way to see Lwaxana do the wedding on Beta Z, and then we never see it. But I wish we got Lwaxana's reaction to that.
Yeah.
The description of how it's exhausting her to do what she's doing, it really makes you think of it being like muscles that she's using. And when she's using them in a different way than she's used to, it's causing her pain because she hasn't built it up and she's overdoing it.
Right.
But she keeps doing it with the bags under her eyes and everything. It's affecting her dedication to duty and stuff.
I know I'm referencing our friends at Fashionist a lot, but they said bags under your eyes. You mean suitcases? Yeah, they really tried to make Majel look bad.
And I think it also, that basically points out how hard it is for her to keep it under wraps.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
Under her eyes.
The moment before she collapsed, I don't know if you get this in retrospect, but because I knew Kestra died from a drowning, if you noticed where it really starts to hit home for her is when a Hedril, Kristen Dunst, falls into the water.
And my reaction was like, it's not, why was that even a thing? I don't remember why was that even filmed? And then she's on the floor, and then later it started clicking.
This might be my alternative episode, which is Troy describing the events of the episode Justice. Wait, oh no, is that Justice is it's the pilot where Will falls in the pond.
Yes.
Wesley
falls in the pond. Will Wheaton.
Wesley, yeah.
So that's what I thought too. I reminded me of that as well.
About it, she's like, "What are you? My head hurts." It's like, I don't understand.
No, in retrospect, that was a great hint to what was really going on. Is that was the
because it seems so random, and
she's just like, "Oh, I fell in the pond, la la la,"
and everyone's like, "That's cool," and then like, "Oh crap, she's dead. She's dying over here. What happened?"
Yeah, little Hedril played by Kirsten Dunst. You may have heard of her because she was about 12 when she did this.
Yeah.
She already had credits before this, but best known for Spider-Man Melancholia, Interview with a Vampire, which came out just a little bit after this, so she may have even filmed that before this, but she would have been about the same age.
Does IMDb not have Bring It On in the top 5?
It does not. I think they have Little Women.
That site down.
They have Little Women. Yeah, Little Women should be Bring It On. Spider-Man makes total sense. Interview with a Vampire makes total sense, but Little Women, I don't even remember her being in that.
There are some folks that I learned with the new version of Little Women. There are folks of that age.
The version's great.
They insist that version. I can't say they insist that version's better, but they prefer that, which is a different thing. But yeah.
But yeah, there were better choices than Little Women for her in her top. Once more, IMDb fails us. Lwaxana's calling for help to Troy. And I liked that Troy didn't leave her bedside. She's sleeping in sickbay with her on the bio bed next to it. I'm glad sickbay allows her to. Probably just because she's a senior officer, but still, it's very nice.
Do we actually get in a Troy episode? I think we passed the Bechdel test. I mean, they're obviously talking about men early on, but later they have everything's about their family.
Yeah, I think this episode passes.
Although, because they can talk about the dad as long as it's not in a romantic way.
Well, and
Is that
yeah, there's no discussion of the data. I mean, there's
That's
whole conversations
later.
where they're just talking about the daughter, right? Basically. Yeah.
And the wolf.
I just want to know why the Karen wouldn't stop communicating with her telepathically. They knew it was hurting her, and she was supposed to not do it. It's like
I don't think she knew it was hurting her because
at the point when but right before she collapses, Deanna's like, "Your mother, you're supposed to be on not doing that." I was going to say bed rest, but no. And she's like, I'm just trying to help.
But the only person that could tell the Karen that she's being hurt by it is Lwaxana herself.
Well, no, because Deanna could have said, "Don't talk to my mother that way." Like,
well, and I did think that too, that she would have sensed it or whatever. Because the Karens they're not empaths.
No, but
sense
if
emotion.
you came up to somebody who you're communicating with, even if they're through a box, and usually with telepathy, and you said, "Don't communicate telepathically with my mother," and they violate that boundary.
There is the conversation, and this was one of my notes where they talk about privacy or whatever privacy, I think he calls it, and they don't know what that is. This is privacy, yes. It is normal for us, yes. If this is your way, I am relieved. And Troy says, and this is again Star Wars ripping off Star Trek, it is our way. She might as well be saying it is the way. So here we see Star Wars once again ripping off Star Trek.
So even if they tell them vocally that you're hurting her, don't mess with her, she's the one that's communicating telepathically with them, and she's probably saying, "Don't worry about it, I'm fine."
Because you notice his reaction first. He does the stare thing. I was thinking he was like, "What is she talking about?" And then she just responded. That's what I was picking from that. So clearly not a telepath.
Right.
I'm clearly not picking up what they're putting down.
Well, and also they know that there's this darkness that she's suppressing that's hurting her, and they want to help her work through that and stop being hurt. So I do think they're being compassionate. I didn't see them as the bad guys in this at all, but that's just my opinion. I thought they probably.
I'm not trying to convince you.
I think they were trying to help her. I don't think they were trying to hurt her.
But I kept thinking that's where we're going. It's like, because he was so intense. McQuez was so intense.
Yes.
Played by Norman Large.
Before, bad thoughts, they hurt her. What thoughts? Take your time. Inside her, the dark place. And I hope we don't lose our G rating over me saying that. But that's very, very filthy what McQuez is saying. But that's a joke. But
So the guy that plays Marquez, Norman Large, is best known for being on the soundtrack of Mamma Mia, singing the film version of Dancing Queen.
Wow.
Also in the music department in Titan AE and soundtrack of Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. So something about Dancing Queen, he was involved in that song. And then he was also in Pretty Woman as Polite Husband.
Again, I say shut down IMDb.com because he was also in the Friars Club episode of Seinfeld as a detective, although if you Google that and Google images, you don't see any pictures of him. But
the wolf was very well done. Wolf was a really good actor. At that point, it wouldn't have been CGI, right? It might have been just like split screen, blue screen. Whoa.
So I think when the wolf is by itself, it's legit. But I guess it wasn't that well trained, or it wasn't good with children. So there's a scene where Kirsten Dunst is petting it. And that was CGI, which surprised me because I thought the same. I didn't think it was CGI either until I saw it today. So
it's just interesting that a wolf would be scarier than your boss. So she just totally said no to her boss. That to me would be scarier, especially on a spaceship.
Yeah,
starship. That was interesting. That was the second thing to try to block her way through there. And then having to get into that scene with her father, that was where I thought maybe they were going to reveal that there was another child, because she was saying she didn't recognize the toys. She didn't remember being there, but she remembered him singing to her and making her feel safe. And then they started singing and I was like, oh no, he starts singing. No.
And I thought it was just going to be about the dad, but I'm glad I don't know if I was glad it wasn't just about him, but yeah, glad's the wrong word for what we end up getting to. But
I think it really, because he has died and she's able to access him, actually the mother's using him as a deterrent for the really hard hurt, because losing your partner, really awful. But in this episode, they're saying this hurt that she's feeling, especially the guilt that was surrounding the death and how it happened is something she had to lock away so hard that she could deal with that pain, but definitely not this pain.
Especially, I guess, being where she's from, I guess it's probably even harder to hide. I guess you probably have to work even harder to hide it from other people.
But they still have their privacy, which is interesting. So it's not so hard to fight against other beta telepathy than it is. This is just like they have no secrets, which would be really, really difficult, I think. I mean, I don't know, because I've never known that. So maybe you get used to it.
Yeah, I guess I've known people without a filter, but even people without a filter have a filter at some point. At some point, they have a filter, I think.
Well, and it's the difference you're saying, like communication, right? If I tell you something, but if I showed you a picture, totally different.
Yeah,
because then you can make your own mind up. I also really like Deanna's moment with her mother when she finally does get her to open up and relive the experience, and how much more real it gets a little bit. You notice in the background, and the likeness of the daughter changes, and you get to, like, she's really going like this with reality, which with the podcast that would be like, it's all kind of coming together to really come to the forefront, and she's dealing with it. But Deanna says that she wishes that she had known the joy that this child was to her parents, and wants to know about her. And her mother says, I wish you two could have grown up together. And I really, that part, I couldn't stop. Because, my oldest stepson, he passed away when he was 13, and my youngest was 10. So you do wish that they could have grown up together, because they've only known, the youngest only knew their life with that sibling. Yeah. And then that's gone, and you just cannot replace it. And I really appreciated Deanna's ability to go counselor with her mother on something that was so personal for herself as well. Like, she's just finding out she has a sister. Yeah, I guess she'll have to. I mean, she'll obviously be going on her own journey as well with that. This show wasn't as serial, and we're in the last season, so I don't know how much more get into it. But like I was thinking, there have been entire movies like Ordinary People is basically based around a sibling, a child dying, and that whole movie is, and the mom is dark paging it in the movie, it's acting like it never happened, or more or less is acting like it, and it won Best Picture. Yeah, and almost that scene almost feels like, and again, we talked about this already, but I think it's so well acted by her, especially by Majel Barrett, that it almost feels like it's from a different episode, not necessarily a different show, but a different episode. Like they stitched them together. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I can see where it could feel stitched together, because it did start off really high energy, and then it ended in this like amazing moment that just, I mean, of course, took me a while to recover from, but I really liked that when they came to bringing the child in, and then she could have her moment. I don't know if confronting is the right word, but just talking to the child. Did not say, it's okay, I forgive you, any of that stuff. Just went to the light. And I really appreciated that, because I think anything else would have cheapened the whole thing for me. Because like I said, when this kind of, I guess it's a trope comes up, lost child. I kind of just sit back and go, okay, well, let's see if you actually get it. And if I'm getting punched in the gut, then yeah, they get it. And if I'm going, no, it's like, but this did. It was so great. It really did. I mean, I can't speak to that experience, but I can definitely, I guess this goes back to like last week with Cardassians, where I only had the one moment where I really felt for the orphan. In this one, it was like, even if I felt like the first 40 minutes, I was like, can we get to this? Once we got to, it's like, oh, I was there. I will, and this will be my one bit of victim blaming here, though. What kind of telepath doesn't notice their kid, or empath doesn't notice their kid missing? Okay, yeah, and so I did have a problem with the whole, because they're in, what was representing the actual environment in which the dog's right there, the water's right there, it's puddle deep. Not that you can't drown in puddle deep, but yeah, it's like, so how did you not notice this? That is interesting. Maybe maybe Deanna was just a really needy baby
Oh, that's true. And the dog and the husband was human, I think. So
or not empath at least. I'm pretty sure he was human, but yeah, that part was a little bit like, how did that happen? Maybe if the dog ran off, she ran off after him and didn't. I don't know. I guess for me, because of the set itself, and then later seeing the picture that I believe it was a doctor or somebody had saved, where Deanna said she spoke to him. Right. And he didn't mention that picture. And she said she checked the medical records. And her journal was deleted. But would they really delete, medical records that a child was born? So that kind of made me go, I don't know about that. But
you would think that somebody else in her circle would have let it slip at some point. Like, it's a bummer about what happened here.
Yeah, you got everybody dark page in it at that point.
Yeah.
Like the whole, what was it, 7 years of her life? Was it 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she was just a baby.
So when you really look into
that's dark on a lot of levels.
Yeah. It's like, just that whole first 7 years didn't exist. Those 7 years are gone, which is what they were talking about. Like, it's unfair to the memory of the child to say, you just didn't exist. I'm just not going to pull you out and look at you because it's too painful. So you have to go through that pain to be able to experience the joy to remember it, because it's kind of tied in. But sometimes you can smile, but I also wanted to know what happened to the dog.
Well, it also suggests that like her aunts and uncles and cousins and everyone else were all in on it. Or did they just tell everyone, oh, we sent her off to camp? She was always away.
Exploring the galaxies. Or they just lived a really secluded, real honeymoon style,
Well, yeah, because they're part of one of the royal houses of Benezoid. I'm sorry. Now I'm feeling bad about scratching the surface. Now we're getting
deep dive.
That gets into an even darker area, I think. If it's like, not only am I blocking this from my child and from my life, I'm blocking it from everybody else's lives.
Yes. Or there's something more to the death that nobody else is talking about.
Well, yeah, she said she tried to talk to her mom's old friends or whatever to dig into the tragedy, and nobody mentioned it. And I was like,
one of them still had a picture, and they lied to her when she was trying to save her mother.
And I'll say this: we talk about generic titles, and I thought going in, I'm like, okay, it's going to be so dark. Yeah, it is dark, and it gets darker. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I also thought, and this might just be me because I was a communications major. The dark page reminded me of the Johari window. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's another one of those techniques for figuring out your personality and that kind of stuff. But I thought that's what they were kind of alluding to here. But there's the blind area of your Johari window is 4 spots. There's the open area, anything you know about yourself and are willing to share with others. Blind area, which is what I thought they were. Anything you do not know about yourself but that others have become aware of. Oh, actually, it is here. Hidden area. That's what I think. Anything you know about yourself and are not willing to share with others. So, yeah. So that was an alternate title, was Hidden Area. That's not my alternate episode. I guess I got into that already. But anyway.
Of course, they use the fisheye lens for the dream sequences again.
Of course.
I've been using that a lot this season. It's pretty annoying.
We did mention that the wolf was pretty good. It was an actual animal but when it was close to people, it was CGI.
Oh, was it?
Because it did not behave well with others. I read so.
I didn't think they had.
That's what I was thinking.
It must have been an early CGI, maybe not actual CGI, maybe.
I feel like it had to be like blue screen or something, or
early version or something to make it look like
it was an actor in a really good fursuit.
It's Rick Baker.
The shot where Deanna ran in and the doors closed and the wolf jumped on the doors. Mm-hmm. That was definitely a stunt double in that shot.
Yeah,
and the doors moved when the wolf hit it.
Yeah,
it wasn't a stable enough set.
The one shot where it's definitely not a real wolf is the Kirsten Dunst petting it or whatever. So yeah, but it also thought of when she's running away, when Deanna's running away from it made me think of Ghostbusters when Rick Moranis is running away from the whatever. Mm-hmm. Not Dana. Yep. There is no Dana, but I was just like, nice doggy.
So you can tell where the budget of this episode was limited, because not only is she only running through halls of the Enterprise D, but that was clearly an Enterprise D quarters redressed as a bedroom at a different house, because the angle of the walls and stuff are so distinctive. You can't hide that. They needed a new set. They needed a new room that looked like it wasn't part of the Enterprise. Her dad, of course, wore the old uniform that we love so much from the movies. in Andrew Troy, played by Amick Byram, best known for The Prince of Egypt, this show, A Million Ways to Die in the West. He was in the music department. It looks like he also played a part in season 4 of Next Gen at some point, long time ago, but it wasn't the same role.
He's also on The Simpsons and Quincy M.E.
Oh. So yeah, they used Kirsten Dunst inside the flashback instead of. We did eventually see another actress play Kestra briefly, Adriana Weiner, who has 13 acting credits and also 48 additional crew credits. So still in the industry, it looks like. But most of her acting credits are voice acting. Final Fantasy X, Jennifer's Body, Finding Dory, all is voice acting.
I liked how they were slowly starting to incorporate the real memory versus the dream replacement that Data so helpfully showed us that androids do interpret, electric sheep dreams.
Yeah.
I probably should have rehearsed that a lot more. I thought about it earlier, but
Well, Data's an expert on dreams. As
I love how he just shows up and he's like, "Here's some dream interpretation." That's my experience as an android. So,
was last week? Didn't we just? Wasn't that our last TNG episode? Data dreaming.
I think the last TNG episode was him dealing with his nightmares, and not long ago we had an episode where he started dreaming, like late last season. So he's actually been literal, actually, he is an expert on dreams because he's been studying them for the last 9 months.
So that really worked when they were starting to, incorporate the real memories. But I know they didn't have the budget, but it would have been nice if they were able to do it even more. So yeah, that was what kind of threw me off was the location where, they started to go through this memory. It was like the dog is trying to get away and they're right there. How did they not notice? And then later you realize it was this whole maybe national park kind of situation. But still, Steven had a point. You're, an empath. You can't figure out your kid's in trouble.
Yeah, you don't sense that? Is it possible they were messing around? And by messing around, that's the best I can do on our G-rated podcast. But for the Patreon,
Lwaxana's a very powerful telepath, but I wouldn't think she'd be keeping in with her kids at all times. And maybe by the time she heard it, it was too late to get to her.
Maybe.
We'll just say the dog ran way far off.
Could be.
And then I was saying I really wish I had known what had happened to the dog because I was really concerned with the puppy.
I was not at all thinking about the puppy. Sorry. Yeah, so Deanna was already born when Kestra died.
Mm-hmm.
But she was just little, and then all the deleted. I guess she was only a few months old when Kestra died, though, because the deleted journal entries started again when Deanna was a few months old.
Mm.
They stopped when Deanna was... No, they started when Deanna was a few months old, but then she never discussed Kestra in the journal. She never dealt with the death in the journal, I guess.
Maybe that's what she deleted. I kind of got that that's what she was deleting, but I guess she was deleting was Kestra.
She deleted the 7 years that Kestra was alive and any reference to Kestra. And then when the journal continues, there's no mention of Kestra, which I think is pretty odd for some of the journals all the time to not journal about that, of all things.
Well,
maybe that was a separate journal she made. I don't know.
Oh,
everybody's just very casually getting into Lwaxana's journals. I mean, even Picard's reading over Troy's shoulder. I know there's something serious that they need to get into, but that is kind of an invasion of privacy, and I don't think Lwaxana would be very happy they were all reading her journals.
Not cool, man. Not cool.
Kestra will actually be Troy and Riker's daughter's name, which I think that's pretty cool.
Oh,
but later down the road, we'll find out when they have a daughter, they name her Kestra. So, yeah. I really like that Kestra. She didn't die. Although, I just in this moment got this, that in Star Trek Picard, Riker and Troy, I'm sorry, I'm going to spoil because this is relevant to today's plot, but we never see their kids in the films. But when we catch back up with them in Star Trek Picard, they have Kestra, who's a teenager, and they've lost their son, Thaddeus. He died of a rare disease. So Deanna's going to find out firsthand, really, what her mom went through.
Except that she won't have the benefit of having known what her mom has gone through grief-wise, so that her mom, she could see the same thing and compare.
Well, I'm pretty sure her mom's dead by then. I mean,
yes,
I don't know.
But if she had been open about the fact that Kestra had existed and all that, she would know what it was like to be raised in a household that has that sadness.
So Mr. Hom is the one that kept the picture. Mr. Hom, I missed his presence. He's always with Lwaxana because he's her manservant, but he wasn't in the Deep Space Nine episode either. So we've got a couple episodes now with Lwaxana without Mr. Hom.
I appreciate the illusion, but yeah.
Well, I think we will get him again in her next Deep Space Nine episode, but yeah. This was her last Next Gen episode, but it's not the last we'll see of Lwaxana because she'll be on DS9, I think, a couple more times. So that's good.
Yeah, the only other thing I had was at some point Deanna says, I don't understand any of this. And I wrote, you and me both, Deanna. And this is obviously when we're in the middle of the psycho mumbo jumbo early in the episode.
Directed by Les Landau, one of our regulars.
Mm-hmm.
I did not think of an alternate episode for this. I couldn't. I don't know. I just drew a blank.
I was working on it, but I think we had the one earlier that I said, and I can't even remember what I said 20 minutes ago. But I guess Hegel as an adult. What she would get it. She ends up being Dark Phoenix or whatever from the X-Men movies. That's what happened.
Yeah, she wasn't in Star Trek Picard, so I don't know what happened.
Not yet.
Star Trek Picard's over.
That's what they say.
Well, let's get to the rankings then. Who was your annoyance this episode?
Whoever put those things on Kirsten Dunst's head. Or was okay with that. That is my annoyance for this episode.
I wasn't annoyed by a person or character. I was annoyed by the quick cuts. We're having this moment. Now we're going to cut to we're having a conference about it. We're having this moment. Now we're having a cut. And I understand time constraints, but it did pull me out. I was like, oh, now we're talking about it. Oh, now we have this. You know,
it's that MTV era of quick cuts. You know that everyone was doing in the 90s.
It's like I understand time has passed, but come on.
I'm going to go with the director in general. The fisheye lens again, really over the top, making the guest star seem sinister, and also whoever sets the budget for the show, because having to only use the Enterprise, the sets they already had, I think hurt the story a little bit.
That does remind me of something and I mentioned, Deanna saying, I don't understand any of this. The whole process of how they got into that world of the fisheye lens or whatever. Mm-hmm. So somehow McQueen stared at both of them, and that way he brought them together in his brain.
No, he was the bridge between their brains, so she went into Lwaxana's brain. That's
right. Yeah. So that's the unsexiest threesome I've ever seen. And by that, I don't mean anything about the three people. The three of them, all very sexy. The actual adventure, not
me. It just kind of reminded me of getting my eyebrows waxed. So I was just kind of like, "Oh God, here it comes!" Grace. Yeah.
Who are we having a drink with?
Adult Kirsten Dunst. Yeah, I wanted, and I'll probably just talk about Bring It On for 2 hours. You know what? No, because I'll talk about Spider-Man. I'll ask her about Jesse Plemons. I'll ask her about getting nominated. You know what? That's a series. I could do a Netflix series about getting a drink with Kirsten Dunst. It'd be best if I have one and she just keeps drinking. Well, no, that sounds terrible. You know what? We'll drink, but we'll pace it.
I'm going to go with Deanna. I think she definitely needs a drink after this.
Yeah,
needs somebody to talk to, needs to decompress and unpack it. She may just want to sit there silently, and that's fine.
I think we talked about that.
She needs a drink.
I think we talked about that while you were gone, which was, that's something she's got to unpack for a while, but I'm sure we don't go back to that. We're halfway through season 7, and
it's a quick cut. She's all healed up. Everything's fine. Grief is past. Completely
if this was DS9,
healed.
If this was DS9, she'd deal with it the rest of the season, but it's next gen, so she won't.
Well, and the whole thing is, the whole focus of the episode is, Lwaxana's had this secret all these years that it's causing her pain. And it's like, it's just starting for Deanna, though. Her journey is just starting for this pain. And not only just finding out about the sister and all that, but the deception and all that. That is so much to unpack. That's a movie in and of itself.
Hopefully, though, Deanna would have enough, sympathy for her mom to realize that it was just so painful that she doesn't feel personally victimized by the fact that her mother couldn't go into her own grief for it. But you never know, kids nowadays.
But her neighbors,
everybody. No, we talked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like one of those reality shows where everyone's except for the main person. Except it's not funny.
I think I'd have a drink with Data because I had this dream last night that my pinky was like, there's something here and I just need to know what that means. Apparently it's communication, but I don't know if I trust that. I'm guessing it's because of this whole thing, but yeah, so Data, but yeah, only because of the dream interpretation.
Yeah, Data would be a good person to have a drink with. Ranking this episode, we still haven't had Keith come and break these ties, so this might get complicated, but let's see if it goes below or above the pack of... What do you think it goes below, above or below like Gambit Part 1 and 2?
It's such an apples and oranges thing, but that's what we're paid to do here by the Patreon folks.
You're paid?
And the listeners. My first reaction was to go above, but then I also thought, I wasn't delighted by this episode until the turn, and then that just like blew my brain open.
I'd say I'd probably put Gambit above it just because there was one really great section of this episode, and the rest was kind of, to me, it was just kind of like ho ho ha ha ha, fun, fluffy episode to lead up to something so amazing. So
I was gonna go below. I was gonna go below for sure because that one scene just didn't do it as much for me.
Yeah.
Below our contested stuff, which includes Gambit Part 1 and 2 and Descent 2, is Phantasms. Do we think it's better or worse than Phantasms?
It's not really fair to ask me on that one because I haven't seen it, but go Data.
Ha! Yeah, Data has...
Or I've probably seen it and don't remember it because it's been since I was a kiddo. So.
Data talks to Freud in the holodeck and then in his dreams, and it's the aliens trying to destroy the ship. I think that one's better than this, too.
I think I may have seen that one.
It's getting close.
That one's like a cool mystery that's clever.
I vote better.
Pieces to it.
Yeah. Sorry, this episode.
I think your synopsis was right on target. Is what's next, or are we at the bottom?
The bottom is the interface.
Oh, I know I don't like that.
I would put this above that.
Yeah, I would too. Poor Jordy.
That was just not a good episode.
Yeah. A lot of moms this season.
Well, it's their last chance to do all the family stuff and everything.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they leaned into it.
Yeah.
But okay, so we'll put it almost to the bottom, just above interface. That's the only one that made it above. Next week, Deep Space Nine. Melora Pazlar, a new arrival on DS9 with a special gravity-based disability, finds an admirer in Bashir. We get a second Bashir episode back-to-back. Meanwhile, an old associate of Quark's comes to the station to kill the bartender. That's got to be like the third person that's come to kill Quark, right? By now.
I guess that's a good running bit.
They've come to kill the bartender.
I mean, he just crosses way too many of the wrong people. But I do remember the character of Melora, and she definitely continued in some novels and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see that episode again. Until then, live long.
And get out of my head. And prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?